Hello, my intellectuals. It's your girl, Blasian Quita, and I welcome you yet again to another episode of Ethnic Awareness. The focus of Ethnic Awareness is covering the importance of cultural diversity in media, society, as well as education. So, as you can see, I have a newer setup. This mic is actually called the Shure SM58 microphone. It is a dynamic vocal microphone, so its whole purpose is to really enhance and make your voice sound better. So I'm still tweaking with it because every microphone has a sweet spot, but I just decided, I said, you know what, I have better video quality, let me increase my audio quality. Eventually I'm going to get one of those more professional tabletop stands for this mic, but you have to work with what you got. So that's not the point of today's video. This is a very interesting question that I found, and let me present it to you. How can I become positive about my ethnicity? And let me read to you this person's experience, hence the reason why they posed this question. I'm Asian. I was adopted by white parents and I grew up surrounded by white people, but I'm always referred to as an Asian girl because of the shape of my eyes and my skin color. Growing up in a very small minority wasn't easy. People were quite harsh and I think ignorant. Now, even though I did grow up, I still feel like I'm different because of my ethnicity. I've heard guys say that they weren't attracted to Asian women quite a lot over the last month. Somehow it makes me feel like I'm and always will be categorized as an Asian girl, and I came to really dislike over the years. I like to be seen as a person first and not as my ethnicity, which is, I think, not as important as people make me to be. Preach to the choir. That is how I definitely feel. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about my cultural background. I am half Ghanaian and half Liberian. So for me, I have this intercultural as well as intertribal African blend. And often what can occur is what happened to me, especially growing up, and that's how the question of how do you feel positive about your ethnicity really comes into play. When Ghanaian, like some Ghanaian people, not all Ghanaian people, but some of my fellow Ghanaian people rejected me because I had a Liberian side, and then when I would go to some Liberian people too, they would also reject me for having the Ghanaian side. So in a sense, even though I'm not mixed race, I kind of deal with the same issues that what I like to call the intertribalism. And that is a huge, huge issue that still is affecting Africa today. And it's a topic that I think people don't really tend to really spend a lot of time on in regards to how do you feel more comfortable about your race. And till this day, I'm still trying to find that African pride that everybody seems to talk about. And it's supposed to be something that is supposed to be automatic. I mean, you should be proud of where you come from. But when you are in a situation, so in her case, being Asian and she's coming from an environment that's predominantly white, what tends to happen, and this is not all white people, because I think often when we talk about oppression in regards to people of color, we tend to just blame white people right away, and then hence the white guilt comes out. But I think in this case, when you're made fun of, like for me, my nose didn't look European. I sounded quote unquote European, but that's not. I think to me, that was really the challenge was I was trying to, and this is what happens, honestly, to African or African American people. When your people kind of like push you away, then you try to start to be who they stereotypically are. So in my case, I was trying to be stereotypically black, which is kind of funny because when we look at mainstream culture like hip hop and rap culture, doesn't really reflect the foundations of what hip hop was. Hip hop now and rap is, hip hop is more of the philosophical form, and rap is the commercialized form. And that's the same way to think about this. How can you become positive about your ethnicity? Use the medium of media to articulate your story. And that's what this person did. She felt that her Asian identity was being mocked and ridiculed, and to whoever wrote this, I want to just say, be proud of your Asian heritage. I love Asian people because to me, I see how some of them really have that strong identity and that activism when someone criticizes where they come from and understanding your language. And these are all the things that help you to develop who you are. So the first step of becoming positive about your ethnicity is to study where you come from. So now what I'm doing is I'm studying Ghanaian history as well as Liberian history, and I'm starting to study too other people's oppression. So for example, when I started studying about what happened to Jewish people, and then on the transition of that, that similar oppression also happened to Asian people, which also ties back to the oppression that African Americans um, went through with slavery. So when we look at it, people of color as a whole, including white people as well, we have in a period of our time have been uh, historically subjugated, meaning that we have been displaced due to the oppression of people's ignorance and other groups trying to dominate. So I think for Asian people, it's even more difficult, especially from reading this experience, is because often there's this stereotype about white men going after Asian women, and in this case that's not the case. And there's also that stereotype about Asian people just love white people automatically. There are some Asian people who don't like white people and vice versa, and there are some Asian people who don't care for. And let's be honest, there's still a tension because of the LA race riots between some African American people and some Korean American people. So these are all things that kind of make it hard for you to feel positive. So the second thing is you have to let go of that oppression. It's hard. So, for example, with the civil rights movement, I have studied it and I understand that it is a very valid and very important part of our history. But in order for the youth, especially the African American and African or black or whatever terminology you want to use, just the youth of color overall, to be constantly reminded of that oppression makes it really tough for them to really want to aspire to be bigger than the previous or the historical oppression. So we have to start letting go of that. We can still remember it and we can still reflect on it and respect those challenges, but we got to start letting go of that. And then finally, the final step is you have to have that inner confidence, because it's one thing for me to read about where I come from and my people and learning the language and all those type of things, which let me tell you, Tree, which is a very popular dialect from Ghana, not easy to speak. So it can be very challenging, but the more that I learn, the more I'm understanding that although there may be some of my people who feel that I'm, because I was born here in America, that I am not authentic, but that doesn't mean that I'm not less African than they are. It's really a matter of your own self-confidence, how you perceive your own self-identity. So what do you guys think about being positive with your identity? Has it been a challenge for you? I want to hear your stories. You can follow me on Twitter at BelasianQuita, as well as leaving your comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to get smart and stay informed.